After my miscarriage, I accidentally overheard Jacob Lopez, my husband, speaking to the doctor. Find an opportunity to drug my wife, then remove her uterus. Make sure she can never conceive again. He then placed his large hand on another woman's belly and instructed, give her the best prenatal care plan. I want her child to become the heir of the Lopez family. I recognized the woman, it was a streamer from Jacob's company. I heard him solemnly remind the doctor again, and make sure my wife recovers well. If this surgery leaves her with any complications, none of you will escape the consequences. My heart trembled. I never imagined that the man who once loved me like his very life would suddenly betray me. Without hesitation, I left him with a divorce agreement, giving them my blessing for their love. As I walked back to my ward, my mind replayed the scene one had just witnessed. The husband who had once treated me like a precious gem, who claimed to love me with all his being, was now plotting to betray me, ordering someone to take away my ability to bear children. And he knew better than anyone how much I longed to be a mother. Passing by, a young nurse glanced at me with admiration and said, her husband is incredible. To ensure she gets proper rest, he reserved this entire floor of the hospital for her. He even hired professional nurses to take care of her every need. And that's not all, he insists on staying by her side 24/7. Isn't her husband just the most loving man? Another nurse added, when she hemorrhaged after the miscarriage, her husband cried until his eyes were swollen. I've never seen a man care so much for his wife. I even heard they've been together since their school days. To marry her, he moved his entire family business into her name. If I had heard this before, I would have felt incredibly fortunate. But now, my throat felt like it was clogged by a fly, leaving me nauseated. At that moment, Jacob's furious voice boomed from a nearby room, you're all useless. It's just one person, yet you can't keep an eye on her. If anything happens to Larissa, I'll make sure you regret it. Jacob rarely lost his temper. The last time he did, it was because I fell gravely ill, and no hospital could cure me. He was so desperate that he almost destroyed the hospital, and even contemplated dying with me. But now, seeing the veins bulging on his temple didn't stir the same emotion in me. I simply said calmly, Jacob, I'm here. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up. He rushed over and enveloped me in his arms. Larissa, where did you go? Why didn't you tell me? I thought something had happened to you. His voice trembled with fear, so genuine it was hard to doubt him. I gently pushed him away and said, the room felt stuffy, so I went out for some air. Only then did he relax, though he still held my hand tightly, unwilling to let go. Soon, he took a bowl of medicine from the nurse and brought it to my lips with a tenderness that seemed unshakable. Sweetheart, it's time to take your medicine. Staring at the bowl of dark, brown liquid, a chill ran down my spine. The scene one had witnessed earlier flashed in my mind. This medicine is bitter. I don't want to drink it, I refused. In the past, Jacob would never refuse my requests. But this time, he uncharacteristically insisted, if you don't take your medicine, you won't recover, and you won't be able to have a baby. Didn't you always want to give me a child? He knew my desire for a child was my weakness, certain that the mention of it would sway me. But I no longer trusted him. Without hesitation, I slapped the bowl out of his hands. I said I'm not drinking it. I deadpanned. For a moment, his gentle expression froze, and a flicker of displeasure crossed his eyes. I thought breaking the bowl would let me escape, but the next second, darkness overtook me, and I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, it was already the next morning. A sense of foreboding filled me. Pulling back the blanket, I saw a surgical scar on my abdomen. My world instantly crumbled. I wanted to confront Jacob, but before I could, he explained, sweetheart, you fainted suddenly last night. The doctors ran some tests and found cancerous changes in your uterus, so I had them remove it. Afraid I wouldn't believe him, he even showed me the medical report. Sure enough, it stated uterine cancer. If I hadn't witnessed his instructions to the doctor with my own eyes, I might have fallen for his lie. Staring at the hideous scar on my belly, I felt as though my heart had been ripped apart, leaving only a gaping void of despair. Jacob pulled me into his arms, his voice filled with pity as he tried to comfort me. Sweetheart, I know how much you've always wanted a child, but your health is what matters most to me. I can't bear the thought of losing you. If it comes to it, we can always adopt a child. I opened my mouth to say something, but before I could speak, the door creaked open. Daisy entered with a fruit basket in hand. Sorry to interrupt. I'm here on behalf of the company to check on Mrs. Lopez. Daisy was a new streamer signed to Cosmic Entertainment. Beautiful, with a perfect figure and a captivating personality, her live streams brought in millions for the company. It wasn't hard to see why Jacob would favor her. Jacob's expression didn't change. He nodded at her indifferently, then turned his attention back to me. But I knew, beneath this facade of calm, turbulent waters brewed. I turned my back to them, suppressing my emotions, and said, I'm tired. I'd like to rest. I thought Daisy would leave, but to my surprise, she stayed. She sat quietly nearby, keeping Jacob company. Jacob remained by my bedside, thoughtfully massaging my shoulders. Daisy, on the other hand, sat demurely, seemingly embodying the perfect image of a harmonious family. Yet beneath the surface, under the bed where no one could see, Daisy was subtly rubbing her leg against Jacob's. He didn't stop her, allowing her actions to continue until she became bolder. Only then did he reach out, gripping her thigh firmly to put an end to her teasing. But Daisy was undeterred. She slid behind him and hugged him from the back, nuzzling against him like a playful kitten. Jacob glanced at me, ensuring my eyes were closed and my breathing steady, as though I were deeply asleep. Emboldened, he turned and pinned Daisy against the nearby table, gripping her neck as he kissed her. He quickly pulled back, his cold gaze warning her to behave. But Daisy was fearless. She clung to him, once more, wrapping herself around him. This time, Jacob couldn't resist. After one last glance in my direction, he took her hand and led her out of the room. As the door clicked shut behind them, I opened my eyes. Jacob would never imagine that every detail of his interaction with Daisy had been reflected in the glass, allowing me to see everything with startling clarity. I quietly followed them to a secluded corner. Hiding behind a column, I peeked out to see Jacob gripping Daisy's neck, his teeth clenched as he hissed, "Didn't I warn you to behave yourself in front of Larissa?" Daisy wasn't intimidated. She leaned coyly against his arm and pouted. "It's just that you've been so busy with her these past 2 days. The baby and I miss you." She trailed her fingers along his chest, her voice dripping with seduction. "Mr. Lopez, haven't you always wanted to try something more exciting? Let's do it. There's no surveillance on this floor, and your wife is fast asleep. No one will ever find out." Before Jacob could respond, she tiptoed and pressed her lips to his. Jacob froze for a moment but quickly cupped the back of Daisy's head, deepening the kiss. "Jacob, be gentle. I'm worried the baby can't handle it," she murmured. "Shut up. I know what I'm doing." I couldn't bear to watch what happened next. As I fled, their whispered words of intimacy echoed in my ears, stabbing into my heart like shards of glass. The man who once vowed to love and cherish me forever was now secretly meeting another woman behind my back. It felt as though an invisible hand had slapped me across the face. The humiliation was unbearable, consuming me like quicksand. My legs gave out and I collapsed to the ground in a pathetic and laughable heap. A passing nurse hurried over to help me up. Seeing the tears streaming down my face, she assumed I had hurt myself, and comforted me, "Madam, don't cry. If Mr. Lopez sees you like this, he'll be devastated." Looking at the nurse's worried expressions, I could no longer suppress my emotions. I broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. After crying until I was utterly exhausted, I returned to my room, and collapsed into bed. When I woke up, Jacob was still nowhere to be seen. Instead, Daisy stood at the foot of my bed, her expression dark. There wasn't a shred of respect in her gaze. Instead, she looked at me, with disdain and mocked, "You saw what happened earlier, didn't you? Jacob loves me. I'm carrying his child. I clenched my fists and trembled as I asked, how long have you been together? Daisy smirked, holding up 3 fingers with a triumphant air. 3 years. 3 years ago, he met me at a dinner party, and fell in love with me at first sight. That very night, he spent the entire evening with me. When he got back, he felt guilty about you, so he transferred all his assets to your name. But those things were supposed to be mine and my baby's. You stole what rightfully belongs to us. I bit my lip hard, suppressing the urge to slap her. Seeing my restraint only made Daisy more brazen. She added smugly, do you think he really loves you? Every night after you fall asleep, he comes to me. Even now, with me pregnant, he can't stay away. And just so you know, on the day you had your miscarriage, he wasn't at some business meeting, he was in my bed, enjoying himself. He can't live without me anymore. If you're smart, you'll give him a